what do we say for the HLA? Why we took part?
Don't move chin.
It's alright, I'm just going to stop.
Just when you end it.
Don't look away.
Yeah,
That is not going anywhere.
Just another day at the office.
Hi, I'm no.
Most important thing is what I've learned from the HLA and adapting it and moving forward and making sure, you know, I make use of it. The reason why I don't know what to say.
If I make a mistake, can I just like take a pause and then start again?
Yeah, I'm ready.
I don't know what to say. Don't record this.
I've really enjoyed it. I've learned so much, and I've really benefited from. Oh God, what have I benefited from? Oh.
Okay.
Is that it's been a fantastic. Oh no, I've lost it.
Can you give me a countdown?
I don't know how much to gesticulate. You know? How much? It's quite a mellow person. I don't know.
I'm ready.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I'll like chop and add some things.
We're looking forward to seeing you. Bye-bye.
Hello, welcome to HLA Live. HLA Live is our regular broadcast on the HLA YouTube channel as well as all the other social media channels. Each week we talk to interesting people from across the HLA community.
Good evening everyone. I am really excited to be chairing tonight's meeting.
Hi, I'm Rosie Spooner and I'm hosting HLA Live this Wednesday.
And I'm an HLA scholar and I'm also going to be your host this evening.
To share with us their ideas and their innovations and hopefully bring them to a global audience.
Quite quick, we have ideas, let's do this, let's do that. So
many of the topics come from our community, with scholars and faculty expressing an interest in many of the discussions that we're about to have.
Hello everyone and welcome to the HLA Live session on widening participation in the postgraduate realm.
Homelessness and health.
Addiction and the new normal.
HLA programs are built on 6 pillars. The leader is an innovator and entrepreneur. The leader is a communicator. The leader is a manager. The leader as a negotiator. The leader is a follower, and the leader is a philosopher. If you are interested in becoming a HLA scholar, why not get in contact? Many of the episodes in HLA Live will cover one or more of these important pillars. The HLA team consists of Pedra, Eamon, Tim, Riddy, Alistair, Adil and Trisha, and a range of other HLA scholars and faculty.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining us today on this HLA Live episode. My name is Natalia Skorupska and I'm the program manager for the HLA IDEAS, which is the incubator program for social enterprises and non-profit organizations in healthcare. I am joined today by people who are currently working with us as scholars on our program. They are incredibly inspiring individuals whose organizations are making a real difference in the world, and I am so excited to have them here today so that they can talk to us about their journeys and the work that they have been doing over last year. To briefly introduce them, we have Dr. Jade, who is working as the Director of Operations for Melanin Medics. We have also Kirsty Morrison, who is the founder of We Are Medics. And last but not least, we have Nathan Anderson, who is the Associate Director at the Aspiring Medic Support. So thank you so much, guys, for joining me today. And if you could just briefly introduce yourself with what you do and what you do at your organization, that would be great.
Okay, so thank you very much, Natalia, for the kind introduction, and especially talking about the HLA IDEAS, which is really an important program, especially part of the Healthcare Leadership Academy. So my name is Jade, as per mentioned, and I'm also one of the founding members of Melanin Medics, which is a charity organisation which is national in nature, and it's one of the leading organisations which specialise in providing innovative solutions for Black, African and Caribbean individuals across the UK, in particular for medical students, aspiring medics and also junior doctors as well. In conjunction of that, I'm also the Mind Us project lead, which is a project which has been kindly sponsored and funded by BMA Giving. That is a solution which has been given more so to really make sure that we care for our workforce. And in particular, as an organisation which really targets Black, African, Caribbean people in general. That is what my particular focus is on as well. And I'm also the enrichment program lead, which is the program which runs in conjunction with that, which is an innovative, multifaceted program that we have developed over time. And that is something that is for final year Black, African and Caribbean medical students and doctors. So it's pilot in nature, but it's really, really fun and really amazing. But in conjunction with that, I am a previous scholar, which is of course from the Healthcare Leadership Academy, where I've learned a lot of skills with regards to that. And I'm also part of the Medics Academy team, learning a lot in that particular remit as well. But outside of that, I am pretty much a junior doctor, based more so in West Yorkshire and Leeds. And in my spare time, I do enjoy my family and spend time with my friends. So yes, that's a very brief introduction of myself.
Amazing, Jade. Thank you so much. When do you sleep? I mean, I already know most of this because we've been working together for the last few months, but yeah, it's absolutely amazing that you're wearing so many hats. So thank you. So Kirsty, did you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Kirsty. I'm a fourth year medical student at Birmingham, and I helped set up We Are Medics last year. We Are Medics is an online community for young people who are interested in applying to medicine. We have over 10,000 followers on Instagram. We've produced, I think, 6 or 7 ebooks over the last year, and we try and support young people, particularly those from widening access backgrounds, with their applications to medical school and university in general. And we do this by producing online content, which is free and open access. And we're medical student led, which we think is really important as an organization because it means that we can be really innovative and approachable to the young people that we work with. Outside of We Are Medics, well, like I said, I'm a medical student at Birmingham. I volunteer with Girl Guiding when I can, and everything's not online. And I enjoy cycling.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And last but not least, Nathan, did you want to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about the amazing work that TAMS has been doing?
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much, Talia, again. But yeah, as I said, my name is Nathan. I am currently a fourth year medical student as well, but at Brighton. And I'm currently the Associate Director of the Aspiring Medic Support, also known as TAMS. And TAMS is a registered community interest company with the aim of widening access to medicine in supporting current and aspiring medical students. We do this through our mission, which is our 3 E's, so to engage, raise and equip. So you want to engage with the community, whether that be current medical students or aspiring medical students as well who want to study medicine, who might not have the means, access to do so. And by equipping them in their journeys with the necessary tools they need to get through that journey, and then also erasing the false preconceptions about medicine as a career only for certain people, if that makes sense. Yeah, and that's sort of our mission. Do this through various ways. So our flagship Aspiring Medics Days, where we go into schools and we speak about the application process, speak about what's like to be a doctor. Yeah, as I said, just achieve that for our mission, among other ways as well. So things like a monthly webinar series called TAMS Talks, which is aimed at supporting current medical students in their career progression by exposing the hidden curriculum within medicine. So there's a few ways we've been helping sort of current and aspiring medical students reach over 3,000 aspiring medical students and students as a whole. So yeah, doing quite well. And yeah, that's pretty much most of the hats I wear. Do some different widening access work at my medical school as well. But yeah, other than that, yeah, just pretty chill guy, I guess.
Amazing. Thank you so much for these introductions. So you mentioned briefly about all the work that your organizations are doing, and I know they have a lot of different branches and a lot of different projects going on at once. One of the main questions that I've already been asking you when you joined HLA IDEAS, but I think our listeners would love to hear about as well, is what motivated you to start your organizations, and how did you overcome the initial fear or reluctance, or this initial, should I do it, should I not? I see a problem, but do I do anything about it? So this is sort of the origin story. So I don't know if anyone wants to volunteer to go first, or whether we should keep the same order, but yeah, I'd love to hear your origin stories again.
So for We Are Medics, it was quite a definitive point that made us decide to start it. So a bit of a backstory. I think it must have been in 2019, around autumn time. I started talking with some of my friends at medical school who would go on to be the people who I set up We Are Medics with, about how if you Google things like how to get into medical school, most of the stuff that comes up on the internet is either the student room and forums with just anonymous people giving advice, or it's really well done, shiny professional websites that are advertising loads of really expensive courses or mock interviews or interview prep books and stuff like that. There was nobody that was giving high quality advice from a reputable source for free, with no strings attached. And we thought that that was obviously a problem, because it meant that young people from widening access backgrounds who may be less able to have the money to spend on huge amounts of preparation courses would be disadvantaged in their applications. And so we took that to the Medical Schools Council conference on widening access in autumn 2019, and we said that we wanted to set up a website that would address this, and I think we did a poster presentation, which we did win an award for, and we got the names of some other medical students who were at that conference who were interested in helping start it. But it was one of those things that we knew we should do, and we knew it would be useful, but we never really got round to it. So that was probably November time of 2019. But then in March 2020, all the schools were shut. And at that point, we knew we needed to do something, because otherwise, almost a whole generation of young people who were applying to medical school would be completely reliant on online resources, which we already knew were clearly advantaging people who had the money to spend on them. And so I think it was the same day that Boris Johnson announced the schools would be closing in March. We set up the We Are Medics Instagram page, and we posted our first post, which I think was advertising a live event we'd be doing a week later. And we emailed it out to all of the schools that we normally work with in Birmingham through our Widening Access Society at the university. And we got 500 followers, and we thought, oh, this is amazing. And it just really spiraled from there. And now here we are with 10,000 followers less than a year later.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And why did you feel so passionate about widening access to medicine? I mean, we all know that it's very important, because we want all people to be able to apply medicine, not just the rich kids. So, but is there anything in particular that motivated you to get involved in this issue?
I think it was probably the realization that I benefited a lot from the school that I went to. So I went to a state grammar school in Berkshire, and they were really great at supporting us with our medicine applications. I got a mock interview from a student's dad who was a doctor. No one in my family was a medic, but I felt really supported through the school. And I guess naively, because I was 17, thought that that was what everyone experienced. And then quickly, when I came to med school, I realized that really wasn't the case. And I definitely benefited hugely from the support that was available to me through my school. And it really struck me as really unfair that wasn't the same across the board. And it was really clear to me that although medical schools say that their application processes are maybe fair and you can't prepare for them, it's really easy to do that if somebody shows you the right way to prepare and the right way to jump through those hoops. And like you said, it's not okay that only certain people are able to become doctors, both because obviously social mobility is hugely important, and medicine is already the most inherited profession in the UK. So just from a social mobility standpoint, it's hugely important to widen access to medicine. But I think also medicine as a profession is more uniquely important, that we're representative as doctors because we're serving like local communities. And I think it's difficult for patients to trust the medical profession if they don't see anyone like themselves represented, if they see everyone who's a doctor as someone who was born into a middle-class family, and that doesn't fit their background and things like that, then it's difficult, I think, to build trust with the NHS. And if people don't trust the NHS, I don't think, obviously, that's a really bad thing. So I think that there's multiple reasons. And I think that's why in medicine especially, it's so important to help widen access.
I mean, you've mentioned on a lot of topics that I know will be very close to Nathan, because TAMS is doing a very similar thing, but they are focused in London. So Nathan, did you want to tell us a little bit more about how TAMS started, why you saw a need in London in particular? And yeah, I would love to hear your story, if that's all right.
Sort of similar to Kirsty, yes. TAMS started essentially unofficially about 3-4 years ago now, actually, in 2017. And back then, it actually wasn't called TAMS. It sort of didn't have any name. But me and another one of the other founding members, Jacob, we basically just started going into schools and just sort of essentially talking about the application process to medicine, trying to give tips on applying to medicine for the students who wanted to apply. Just because we realized and understood sort of the backgrounds we came from, backgrounds that our friends came from. We know that within London particularly, there are lots of students, lots of kids from sort of lower socioeconomic backgrounds, students who might not have the adequate support around them, support networks, because as guys were saying as well, you have tend to have big support networks, especially in medicine. So you might know someone who's a doctor or someone's in medical school and they can help you with application, that sort of thing. Whereas students who aren't from those backgrounds, they don't have that same support. So they don't know any doctors to get work experience. They don't know doctors help them with their personal statement, with interviews, things like that. So just coming from those backgrounds and really having that experience, we sort of were motivated to sort of almost shift that and level the playing field, at least in our, as much as we can. So we started going to schools, and that was really what it was. We didn't really have any sort of vision at that point in time. We were just sort of just going to schools, trying to build a relationship with the school, and then just do the best we can. And it's sort of grown into something we didn't imagine it would at that point in time, if that makes sense. But yeah, we sort of just run with our passion and our desire just to level the playing field and to widen access really, and to, I guess, even out the inequalities basically. Yeah,
perfect, thank you. There was one thing you told me when I joined HLA IDEAS and we first met, and you and Jacob, you were telling me about how TAMS started, and I think I asked you, why in London? I thought there's already loads of things in London, because I like to ask controversial questions like this.
Yeah.
And there is something it said to me that I really loved, which is you spotted that even though there's loads of organizations already working in London, they are not actually working effectively because they're not targeting the people that are meant to be targeted. Did you want to tell us a little bit more about that? Because I feel like that's the main selling point of TAMS.
Yeah, definitely. Something I probably should mention in the other answer actually, but no, definitely. So yeah, we noticed that with generally widening access organizations, generally, I guess within London, what we know is they tend to be obviously affiliated with universities. So obviously most universities or medical schools in general have widening access organizations or committees or societies, if that makes sense. And a lot of them vary quite a lot. So there are some widening access schemes attached to universities that do very, very well in supporting students from widening access backgrounds, and others not as well as the others, if that makes sense. And what we notice is that generally with any sort of event, they tend to be at the universities. So within these sort of central London sort of big universities, and we felt that outreach shouldn't be that way, if that makes sense. And we really felt the importance of going to the students and going to them, and trying to limit their travel and really just go to them and have the impact there. So yeah, I think we one of our aims is to try and hit the cold spots where no one's reaching, or no one's going to, and go there, and try and impact change. And
yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's just so great because, I mean, on paper it looks like there's all this help available in London, but then if you put it in central London and you don't talk about to schools from boroughs that are further out, they may not know about the events happening, or if they know about the events, then they have to travel across the entire London to get there for like an afternoon, which can be really expensive. So it looks great on paper, but these organizations are not actually very effective at what they do. I feel like they just look great on paper, but actually they achieve absolutely nothing. And one of the things that I really love about the organizations that we work with and that we have on HLA Ideas is that we really try to make sure that we are very effective at what we do, and that we can capture our impact and make sure that we target the resources accordingly, as well as focusing on becoming sustainable. So I really love what TAMS does, which is targeting the people that actually need to be targeted, rather than putting in the events for the sake of looking good. But yeah, just reaching the people that need to be reached. It's perfect, thank you. And on a different note, last but not least, but also kind of similar, because Jade, you do a bit of access as well. Do you want to tell us about how Melanin Medics started?
Yeah, so I actually want to draw upon a particular point that has already been discussed from all of the relevant organisations, and that is in particular about how we specialise in wider participation, and we want to make a choice or a decision with regards to that. And I would say that really fits into the birth of Melanin Medics and the reason why we started. So the reason why we started, of course, from our conception in 2017, it was always a media platform. But it was a media platform because we understood that there was a disparity between what is being said in policy or what is actually reaching the hearts of people. And we found a very innovative tool in the fact that we use media at such a grand scale to ensure that the message was reaching those who were underprivileged, who were not able to access that information. And so as a founding member of the organization which joined once we had the strategic decision that we're now going to go from being a media platform to now being a charity, my particular reason for why I wanted to join it was because I was a person on the other end who did not receive the information. So my particular background story is I come from a very disadvantaged background. I didn't know that, and I don't necessarily, broadcast that because I didn't see it as being disadvantaged. But I went to a school that never taught about university admissions. I went to a school that put a cap on everybody and said, you're not going to go to Cambridge or Oxbridge. We went to a school that never really encouraged people to think about what are the next steps to become a leader, what are the next steps to really engage in your career. And a lot of my peers in my particular cohort either didn't go to university, either didn't consider higher education, and it had nothing to do with their skill set. It had everything to do with the information that they had access to. And so for my particular story, coming from a disadvantaged background and trying to mitigate that and go to a grammar school at a later stage, that was too late for me. And I felt that big barrier. And that's the reason why I was so keen to join Melanin Medics when it was at a media stage, because I understood the barriers that I faced. But what we then found in particular was that widening participation and social access issues don't just stop at class, but race and class can also be intertwined together. And that's why we made a stance, because right now Melanin Medics stands as one of the first national charities that specialise in particular for Black Afro-Caribbean individuals, was because there was still a difference that existed, the social economic barriers that come with class, with race intertwined as well. And so the reason why we started was because we were very clear from the very beginning what our why was and what our mission was. And it's been a lot more refined now at the stages that we've been able to progress. But that mission in particular was we want to promote diversity in medicine, widen aspirations, and aid career progression for African Caribbean students and doctors. And to do that more so in innovative means, but to make sure that it actually reaches the community. Just as Nathan Anderson proposed with regards to the fact that outreach never was reaching the disadvantaged places in London. And as Kirsty mentioned, in particular, that it needed to have more accessibility to more people outside of a particular class system. That's the same way that we have really been able to facilitate our particular approach. And so by doing that, that's why we've been able to really engage a lot more with medical politics, in order to engage with the GMC Advisory Board for Differential Attainment, in order to engage with the BMA Racial Harassment Charter, because we're very clear what the problem is, because the honest truth is a lot of people in our organisation have either faced that problem and are really trying to drive the change and use whatever means we have through resources to effectively mitigate that. And that was the most important thing for why we were able to start our organisation, because of that particular vantage point. And so it's really, really interesting to have that, because I think when you have a very clear understanding of what the problem is, you can approach your key stakeholders in such a way where it's not from limited knowledge, but it's from a clear understanding. And so one of the pilot programs that one of our organizations are actually implementing, because as part of my role, my particular role is strategic partnerships and really making sure that we manage our stakeholder management, etc. It was a great privilege for us to partner with Lucy Cavendish College, Cambridge, which is one of the leading universities in the world. But they're one of the leading universities in the world that understood that we want to make sure that underrepresented groups have access to a high quality education. And so up until this point, they had only had their college have access to females, because, you know, obviously back in the day, females just could not get into HE. But they understood that now we're at a particular vantage point where there's so many other underrepresented groups that do exist in society. And as a charity, we were bold enough to say, one of those underrepresented groups are Black people. So in order for you to partner with us, we need to be very clear in our vision, and they were very much keen to partner with that. And that's because we're very clear with regards to what the solution is, but most importantly, how can that be felt with people who come from the disadvantaged backgrounds and not just being on paper. That is what effective policy is. And I think as a business or any innovative solution, whether you're a business leader or a charity leader, one of the things that you always have to ask yourself is, how are my beneficiaries, how are the people that I'm targeting, how do they actually feel this? Because there are so many people across the world, or there's so many beneficiaries, I can see these things on paper, but they don't actually benefit from it. But that is one thing that we felt as a charity that we wanted to mitigate, and why we started.
Brilliant, perfect, thank you so much. I mean, listening to this, I mean, I already know a lot of these things because I work with you on HLA Ideas, but listening to your stories, it really strikes me how motivated, driven you are, and it's just so inspiring to hear about the work you're doing. I think there's a lot of people out there who see an issue but then think it is what it is, and you have managed to, you know, take that extra step and be like, no, there is an issue and I'm gonna fix it with my work, which is absolutely amazing. The next question, we're here, to talk a little bit about HLA Ideas as well. So I was hoping to hear from you why you actually joined HLA Ideas, why you felt you wanted to or you needed to join HLA Ideas, and how, if at all, it has helped you with your organization and any sort of growth and anything else that it may have helped with.
The reason why I joined HLA Ideas in specific was because it was in conjunction with the Healthcare Leadership Academy. So if we just kind of take a step back and draw upon what the Healthcare Leadership Academy is, or the Healthcare Leadership Academy Scholarship, it's really an innovative program that really widens the accessibility to develop leaders or to develop people who have innovative solutions, but they need the background knowledge for it. And I think how that translates to business in specific, when you have an idea, is you always want to make sure that as you grow, you have people that are better than you, whether that is the people that you invite into your vision, but more so the people that are around you. And so what myself and Alamde Dada, who's also the founder of Melanin Medics, and we joined that particular teaching program, was we found that we benefited not just on an individual basis, but also in what we can draw upon and go give back to our particular organization. And so from that particular experience, it was a no-brainer to join the HLA Ideas incubation program, because one, it's the same people behind it, which is the HLA community, but most of the importance of understanding that this was a really great opportunity in order for us to learn how to scale our organization, in order for us to be around people that could be really, really wise mentors, and to make sure that we're not just benefiting ourselves, but we're also surrounded by other people who are involved in business or involved in charities, and we're able to establish a community. And I think it's really important to do that, especially in the field of clinical medicine, where sometimes those skill sets are not encouraged to learn. But this was really, really it fit in the gap for us to join that particular stage.
Brilliant, thank you. Couldn't have asked for better adverts. Please join HLA Ideas.
No, I'm not being paid for this, so that's fine.
Kirsty, how about you?
I think the driving factor for We Are Medics to join HLA Ideas was probably for mentorship and support in scaling the organisation. So as I kind of mentioned earlier, we started on Instagram. So we kind of started as a media platform. And as we grew kind of exponentially last summer, we were really trying to think critically and carefully about how we can maximize our impact, because obviously there's only so much support you can give people through Instagram posts and IGTVs and things like that. So we wanted to look at developing other solutions which you could deliver at scale online that could be used to reach those social mobility cold spots across the UK. And I reached out, I think Johan reached out to me, or I reached out to Johan, and he told us that HLA Ideas was coming up soon and the application process would open towards the end of the summer. And for us, it seemed a bit like a no-brainer, because we'd be able to access mentorship for our organisation and also get advice on those points about like leadership, managing difficulties within a team, scaling organisations, all of that kind of stuff that, like Jade said, isn't often taught in medicine and medical school.
Perfect, thank you, Nathan. Did you have anything to add to that? How has HLA Ideas been helpful to you? Hopefully it has been. Otherwise, I apologise.
Yeah, just coming off the back of Jade and Kirsty's answers, actually, I think quite similar reasons in terms of why TAMS decided to join HLA Ideas. I think firstly, there isn't much support for non-for-profit organisations, which is actually quite, an important point we need to establish and actually realise in that, there's not really any support you can access really in order to create and build a non-for-profit organisation, especially within related to, I guess, widening access, whether that's obviously Melanin Medics or We Are Medics or TAMS. But yeah, there's not really any support, and so I think, like I said as well, it's sort of a no-brainer joining HLA Ideas, because I think it gives you that support and structure almost to scale up, to develop the organisation, and to look at it through a different lens almost, and through like sort of a more business-minded lens almost. So whether that's the structure of your organisation, your vision, things like that might have been maybe spoken about among you or members previously, maybe not so much at all, but it really gives you the opportunity to speak about it and to really establish those things, so that you have a sort of a strong organizational structure and base to work from. I think also it's been really beneficial to have mentorship as well, and just having people just guide you through the process almost, and just give you ideas and tips on how to, whether that's scaling up, whether that's just, again, like I said, helping with structure as well, basically. So I think it's really, really important. I think it's something that's quite unique, something that's you won't find anywhere else. And yeah, it's really beneficial. I think really, really beneficial.
Great. So coming off those answers, I'm really curious to hear, what were some of the biggest lessons you've gained over the last year or over the last few months of being with HLA Ideas?
I think one of the biggest lessons I think we've learned, I think was with the first session we had with HLA Ideas actually, was the importance of clarity of vision, and having a clear vision on what you want to achieve. I think before anything else, if you don't have a vision for the organization, for whatever you're doing, it's, everything else comes from the vision essentially. And so having that clear in your head really helps the day-to-day running of the organization. Really helps what things you invest yourself in, and whether it's options that come up that might look enticing, might look really good, but if it doesn't fit into your vision and what you want to achieve, then that's probably not the right thing. And so just having that really, really, really clear, and I think HLA has really helped in having sort of learning that lesson and also solidifying it as well. I think it's importance of structure really as well. I'd say it's importance of organizational structure, because I think as non-for-profits, you're generally not paying any volunteers or staff that you have. It's all voluntary work, and so anyone you do take on is really volunteers. And so I think having good structure and definition of roles is really, really important, just to make sure that everyone knows what they're doing, so that the sort of running of the organization as well can run effectively, basically. I think HLA Ideas has really, really helped us to understand that on a much deeper level, I think. from a different lens.
Yeah, I think what I've learned as well, the lessons learned that Melanin Medics has learned, it also relates to what Nathan has mentioned. I think in particular, what has really been interesting about HLA Ideas is the fact that it invites external businesses or non-profits or organizations that are really able to kind of give their story or kind of give their background with regards to what they've learned and the mistakes that they have made in order for us to kind of understand how to mitigate that. And I think what it also does, it really kind of creates a transparent room where people can actually really kind of address what they are facing, but most importantly, how that can be solved through mentorship. So I think that really has been a very interesting space, or a really interesting program for us. And I think what has really been exciting is that it's really targeting startups or organizations which do need the help, and it's not just so waiting until you make this certain amount of capital, this certain amount of reach, but it's really kind of drawing in on the very beginning stages, which I think is really unique in its nature. So that's been a really, really, really beneficial thing as well.
I think for me, the most memorable part so far was actually the first session where HLA Ideas invited someone to speak about an organisation that they started that was non-profit, which ultimately was unsuccessful, and kind of break down the reasons why they thought that was. And I think the two key things I took away from that was the main thing I took away from that was that they said that most organisations, non-profit organisations, and I think for-profit organisations that fail because the people who define the organisation have a breakdown of trust or communication. And they were talking about how it's really important to have something like a founders agreement, or be really clear about the structure within your team about who makes what decisions and how to kind of prevent that from happening. And I think hearing that at a very early stage of your organization is really helpful to help you, like Jade said, mitigate that from happening to you. And that really resonated with me. And that's probably the thing that stuck with me the most from the program, that lesson.
I know a little bit about the stories that you've all gone through to take your organizations to the stage where they're now. But I was wondering whether you wanted to share with our listeners some of the biggest challenges you faced and how you have or are still working to overcome them.
Yeah, so I think some of the biggest challenges we, are facing is really, scaling up. And sort of scaling up our activities so we are reaching more students and more medical students as well. One of our main targets at the moment is sort of to reach sort of the whole of London within the next sort of 18 months. I think obviously scaling up operations is something that we need to do in order to reach that goal. I think just scaling up, especially when you're again non-profit and you're relying on the goodwill volunteers, different medical students, different people, I think can be quite difficult. And it's something we probably at the start underestimated. And I think something we're still working through and we're sort of progressing through, but I think definitely HLA Ideas is assisting us in that and helping us with scaling up, which I think is really, really, really useful in that regard. But I think that's probably the biggest challenge we face, just scaling up our operations.
I think for We Are Medics, one of the challenges we faced was deciding what to focus on in what order. So the medicine application process has so many hoops you have to jump through, and there are commercial organizations providing support for every single one of them. And obviously we can't replicate what other people are doing overnight. And we had to make decisions about what we should put our manpower in and what would make the biggest impact to young people who wouldn't be able to purchase commercial support for their applications. What if we could only do one thing to help them? If we could only give them one resource, what would that be and what would be the most impactful? And something that helped us work through that was some advice that we got through the HLA Ideas program, which was to think about what your minimum viable product would be. So what if you could do something really badly, but it would still make an impact, what would that thing be? And then do that first. And then once you've produced the worst thing you could do to address the problem, then look at maybe approaching it in a different way or in a better way. And so for us, the minimum viable product to reach young people last summer was to produce ebooks and then host them in the URL link on our Instagram page. And then over time, we can look at moving that ebook into a website or into something more interactive. But thinking about approaching problems in that way was a really useful way to to target our work in a way that would be the most impactful for the people we support.
Brilliant. I absolutely love that. I think when you have a vision and you see so many things that you need to do, it's very difficult to get started. And I think this is probably the hindrance
as well. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's just so good to focus on the smallest thing that you can start with that will make some sort of a difference, and then scale that. I think there's a tendency for people out there to think, this is my vision, and then thinking down on like how you can structure it, but actually starting with the first step and then building it up. I think that's a great way to think about a problem. Jade, how about you? What have been some challenges that you had to face while working with Melanin Medics?
I would say exciting challenges that we face. We try not to be too negative by calling them, challenges, but exciting circumstances that we've had to kind of mitigate or learn from. I would say one things that do come in conjunction with scaling or being a national charity is when you grow, you also want to grow your team as well. And so as much as it's very much interesting to focus on growing on the metrics or growing on the outputs or growing on the activities, sometimes the most important thing to do is to grow your team. And I think that particular element has really been an exciting phase for us. And so what we've done strategically, at least for that particular component, is that the first 3 months when we stepped into an operational year, we wanted to really dedicate as much time to building our team. And that was more so for people that came in new or people that were now entering into new roles where they had to kind of learn new things. It was really about building the team and having that transparent conversation of, this is going well, this is not going well, how can we work together? This is the ugly truth, and I'm not coming against you, but this is wrong, and this is how we can move it forward. And I think when you do have that particular environment, it's really important, because a lot of organizations sometimes tend to say, we have our roles, but we have a flat hierarchy, and a flat hierarchy in the sense that we can say what we want to say and nobody's going to be offended because we have a clear vision of where we want to go to. And so I think, me particularly in the organization, I'm smiling now, but I think some people might say that when they first work with me, they kind of are a bit scared. Not because I have high expectations, or because I recognize talent and I want to make sure that everybody does well. Because one of the most important thing about teams is that you have to come to a stage, especially when you become big, that you can't do everything by yourself, but you have to learn how to trust, how to delegate, and to make sure that people do what you do, but even do it even a lot more better. And so even if you've worked with me and you've possibly gone through the process of being fired at least 2 times in my head, we do come to a solution that you are amazing and you're better now at doing this than myself. And so that's kind of one of the challenges that we've had, but it's been very much exciting to do. But it just resonates with a lot of strong teamwork, a lot of strong organization and communication, and kind of learning how to work with each other. And I think one thing that I can kind of draw upon is something called the Dream Team. So it's this really innovative workshop that actually looks at the fact that people work in different prototypes or different personalities. And it's run by a really, really interesting guy called Sunny Khan. And what he recognized is that people work differently, and you can't tell people to change how they work because it's their personalities. But if you want to be an effective team, you're going to have to learn how to work with those opposing personalities, but still produce amazing results. So that is really kind of the great challenges that we've had to face, not just growing the outputs, but also growing our team internally as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Jade. And I think you mentioned, such a good point. People are tough to work with, but you also need them so badly to grow and help you with your vision. And I know, Kirsty, that you have faced some challenges with, working in a team of a lot of people, because sometimes the answer to tackling a big issue isn't necessarily to recruit everyone under the sun. It's better to be a smaller, well-working team than to be a massive team of people kind of not really working. So I don't know, Kirsty, whether you had any thoughts about what Jade said, or any advice to our listeners who might be thinking of recruiting a team, already having a team. How do you work with people?
I think it's, if you're thinking of recruiting more people for your team, I think it's important to really clarify what you want them to be doing, what that new team member would be doing on a weekly or monthly or an annual basis. And yeah, considering whether at the current position of your organization, where you are in your journey right now, do you need that? Because adding more people into a team does make it larger. It makes it often more challenging to come to consensus. it makes the governance more complicated. And, you know, adding some, I think often recruitment is seen as just a benefit, but every decision has pros and cons, and there is a negative to onboarding more people into your organization. And I think that often that's not recognized until perhaps it's too late. So I think that would be my word of advice.
And I think that's a brilliant point to make. I was sort of wondering, Jade, you already mentioned this, but maybe a little bit more advice just in case anyone is having issues out there that are quite similar. When you work in a team and it's not working, how can you communicate effectively with somebody? Or sometimes, sometimes a relationship has come to an end and it's broken beyond repair. How do you end a relationship with somebody? How do you scale down your team to make it more effective? Any advice from any of you?
I would say that one, you have to understand that when you work in a team, you have to be comfortable with having uncomfortable conversations. And I think the other thing is that as long as you all have the core primary aim or the primary vision of this is what we want to do, there really isn't a negative outcome if you do fall out. I don't believe in fallouts. I just believe in honest conversations and this is what we want to do. And I think the best team players recognize that, okay, if I'm not doing this well, because I believe in the vision, I'm fine with not working on this particular thing. And it won't be necessarily an issue. So as long as the heart of what everything that you're doing is mission-led and vision-led, there should not be an issue with regards to having a fallout or anything. But one thing that I can stress and what is really important is do make sure that you do build strong teams. When you are the team leader, you're not the most important person in that team. You're not the most important person in the organization. The most important people are the people that you're working with who are your team members. And sometimes if they are saying something that you don't agree with, you actually do need to listen because everybody's voice is important. But, having difficulties, it happens in every team. It happens in families, it happens in, school. So that's something that you should be comfortable with having. But just make sure that you listen more. When you become a leader or director or you grow in your organization, you actually find that the part that you have to play is to actually listen more. So listen with your ears more and speak with your mouth less. And that's what I would say.
So I know you've told me about all the hats you're wearing and, you're medical students, doctors, you're working on these organizations, but you also have other projects going on in your life. How do you manage your time?
I use a to-do list app, and I think that's the main way that I stay on top of everything. And I'm also one of those people who believes in inbox zero, so I ruthlessly delete or archive everything that comes into my email inbox. And I kind of hate getting emails, so I keep them all to the absolute minimum. And I think that helps me feel more in control and balanced. And I set quite strict boundaries about, I think especially with COVID and with everything being online, it's really easy to let work stuff steep more into your personal life, because you can join a Zoom call at any time, and then suddenly you can fill up most of your evenings and weekends with doing work-related activities. So I'm quite strict about what I'll let take up time in that regard. And then I think also being able to delegate is a really important way to keep on top of your time and manage your time, especially if you're in a leadership role in an organization, because often if you feel like something's your baby, you're going to want to do a lot of it yourself, but that's really not sustainable. And coming to that realization sooner rather than later will be invaluable.
I would say that is something that I handle in two components. So one thing I've learned, and I know that I keep on saying it and I do apologize, but teams. When I specifically work on my teams, I try and work with people who complement my weaknesses and complement my strengths per se, if that makes any sense. And so by doing that, that means that the task is being able to kind of be completed at a lot more of a faster rate, because I know that, everybody on the team could basically do it. So it's all about delegation. And then another thing I would say is, again, kind of having a refined to-do list and really focusing on those really important things and making sure that you give quality time to what you are focusing on, as opposed to being everywhere at all one particular point. So that's what I would say in how I manage my particular time. And then another thing that I do tend to do do as well is I do also, and one thing that I'm learning is to be a bit more vulnerable and tell people I don't have time and this is the reason why, and being very clear on that and making sure that people can really help to fill in the gaps in that particular regard. But that's how I would say that I manage my time. And one thing also, I enjoy everything that I do. So even if it is a lot of things, as long as I enjoy it, it's fine. I would never say yes, or I'll never be part of something, an organisation that I don't like. I enjoy everything, so that also helps as well.
Yeah, it's not without the struggles, like, I guess, time management. If I'm honest, I wouldn't say I'm like the best at it. But I think definitely just having a idea of what you want to achieve. That makes sense. So that's your vision, your goals, whether that's short-term, medium-term, long-term goals, and just figuring out, okay, what do I have to do to get to those goals, to those achievements? If that makes sense. I guess your way you manage your time will come off the back of that. And so I think, yeah, it takes a lot of planning. So I tend to like just try and plan my week in advance if I'm going to a new week or a month or whatever. And try and plan what I'm going to be doing that week, so you're sort of not scrambling, okay, what am I going to do now, what am I going to do now, if that makes sense. And that really helps. And I think as well, just really important to have rest as well, and factor in and schedule that in as well, and sort of that's days of rest or times to just rewind, downwind, or whatever, I can't remember the word. Yeah, just chill basically, because without that you are not able to charge your batteries and you're not able to work at your maximum potential. And so I tend to like try and like relax completely on like Sundays, for example, and try not to like schedule any work related things. Just tend to chill and spend time doing things that I enjoy. I find that really helps me during the week as well.
Brilliant, thank you. And I know we've talked so much already about how HLA IDEAS has been helpful and the mentorship that it has offered. But I wondered whether there's any support or mentorship that you receive outside of HLA IDEAS, whether it is to do with your organization or life in general or anything else in your life. Whether you have any support or mentorship regarding that, and whether you wanted to share with us the importance of mentorship and support.
So outside of the HLA, I'm a Christian, so one of the things that I kind of gain from my mentorship is just really believing in what God says and just spending a lot of time in prayer, and that would always be my pinnacle point of my mentorship to kind of help me with any challenges that I do have. One thing I would say in conjunction with that, there is an organisation called Alito Foundation. So Alito Foundation is a social enterprise which really wants to help to cultivate in leaders that come from underrepresented groups, in particular those who are Black as well. And so one thing that they have found is that they do a leadership program, which I was part of about 3 years ago. But in order to kind of help to fill in the gaps, they also have a structured mentorship program as well. And so it's been really great for me to be a beneficiary of that, to make sure that I have mentors in addition to that. And then another thing that I would say is that I am part of organizations where they kind of do drill in that aspect of mentorship continuously. So whether it is Melanin Medics, where as part of our organizational development, we always have a mentor buddy scheme. We always have continual reviews and feedback, just to really make sure that we understand each other. Those who I work with, for example, my deputy manager, my particular minors project, we always have continual conversations of how can I improve, how can you improve. So we always have that particular system. And also part of the Healthcare Leadership Academy, whether it's me being a mentor, but also when I was part of the program, having access to a mentor and really understanding that same network are people that you can still reach out to on a continual basis. And then I'm not allowed, if I'm able to say this as well, but then even Medics Academy. So I don't know if Johan is also a life coach as well, but one thing that he does is every Mondays, there is this particular sort of mentorship, sort of, team building session, which is kind of therapeutic in nature. But that also kind of aids in my mentorship as well. So really kind of picking on all those different aspects and always understanding that you're always learning from people, even if it's not structured as you are a mentor per se. Whenever you're working with people, whether they're senior to you or less senior to you, you're always learning from them. There's always mentorship to be gained. That's what I would say.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. You have loads of mentors that is, I think it's such a good point that you've raised. Even when somebody's not your mentor per se, they don't have the mentor badge, you still can see them as your mentor and you can learn so much. I mean, I've definitely learned loads of Johan ever since I joined the HLA as a scholar, and now HLA Ideas as well. So yeah, definitely seeing mentorship in sort of people that come into your life is a great way to learn. You know, a lot of people that could be watching us right now might actually be either at an idea stage or perhaps a stage where they've just started something, but they haven't gone far with their organization. What advice would you tell your former self if you could travel back in time to when you first started? What do you think is the piece of advice that somebody could really benefit from at the beginning of their journey?
I think mine would be to delegate more and delegate sooner, because I think that's something that if you've come up with an idea yourself and it's something you're really passionate about and excited about, it can be quite difficult to delegate to other members of your team. And I think that the sooner you do that, the more sustainable it will become.
I would probably say definitely just trust the process. I think if you believe in your vision and what you want to do, definitely trust the process and find support where you can, because you can't do everything by yourself. And so find support, trust the process.
My advice that I would give is don't have any form of imposter syndrome or any form of comparison. If the idea comes from your head, it comes from your head, and just go with it. Don't try and give your ideas to somebody. Don't try and say, oh, I'm not qualified for this. Just do it, and make sure that you have strong teams that are also with you. When you are ever starting an initiative, it's not going to be glamorous at the start, and it's still not glamorous at the start, by the way. But be comfortable with that and just go for it.
Brilliant. Perfect. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us today and for donating your time to HLA Live. And thank you everyone who joined us to watch us today. I hope you gained something from it. Please do check out the HLA website in general, but also the HLA Ideas page. We have applications open the entire year round, and we recruit new cohorts every 6 months. So if HLA Ideas is something that you would like to join, whether you're at the idea stage of your organization or you've just started, please do consider applying, because it is a great program to be a part of, and you get to work with such amazing, inspiring people that you've seen today during this episode. So thank you very much, Nathan, Kirsty, and Jade, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It was really interesting.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone that made tonight's episode possible. Whenever our scholars are thinking about complex problems facing our health systems, we encourage them to think about how they make significant change in the world of healthcare. We are incredibly lucky to have some incredible scholars in the HLA. They use the HLA as a platform to take their ideas and bring them to fruition. If you are interested in the work of the HLA, why not join us at one of our future HLA events? Why not join one of our programs? Why not even become a HLA scholar? Thank you for joining us. My name is Johan Malwana, the director of the HLA, and it's a good night from all of us.